Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular ship is called Battleship and Human, written by Plastic Finish, 1968. So there I was, sitting across the table from my greatest rival, my most powerful foe, the one I thought and lost many armada ships to. I have searched endlessly for some inherent biological or physiological weakness, some chink in the armor hidden somewhere in his culture or military tactics. Every move I made has been foreseen, every trick counteracted, every trap I lay disarmed. And now, oh yes, now of all times, to have dinner with him, Admiral Miller, a human. As we sat there, eyes locked across the table, I could hear my mother speaking to his. Somehow, they had met in spite of our war and made friends? But how? And why would you invite a human to dinner? These humans could not possibly think to attain our high etiquette and table manners. Their blocky fingers and big bodies barely fit through the door. I eyed both humans, obviously uncomfortable in our chairs. Breaking eye contact, I glanced behind me at our front door, at the crack my enemy made attempting to enter without bumping the frame. My mother laughed it off. "Oh, don't worry about that, dearie. I'll just have my husband plaster it over it when he gets home." But when that happened, I couldn't help but notice this particular thing. His mother scolded him with a glance, and in response, he almost shrunk in size. Was this it? A weakness in the human female? Perhaps I will allow this personal intrusion for a chance to gather the information I needed. I turned back, surrendering to a cheeky smile, to which the human returned a scowl. Oh, this will be interesting. The dinner began when the evening prayer ended, and I made it a point to reach for exactly what the human wanted. My quicker speed and dexterity nabbed me the mashed potatoes, gravy, and turkey before the human could lay a finger on my food. I could easily track his eyes and watch for a slightest movement of his clunky palms towards whatever morsel he thought that he had the right to. The human paused and threw a stone-faced glance towards me that said, "Let the battle begin." I watched as his scanners searched for a new target. Instinctively, I knew next was the chicken and globnorgs. I stifled a scoff as the human target locked the bowl. Easy pickings, I thought. The dish was positioned to my port side, right at the limit of this weapon range. To think that he could attempt such a feat. My targeting systems locked faster than his. My rate of fire was quicker, and the distance my hand needed to travel was a mere foot. Target locked. Fire! I launched my hand to intercept his before his hand had a chance to budge. My arms, though short, snapped over to the uncovered bowl, almost spilling the contents. I grabbed and retraced my appendages in one fluid, graceful motion. Without stopping, I scooped the writhing mess into my own bowl, splashing the ladle back into the now emptier soup, and replaced the bowl to allow the human hand to make contact. I sat back, letting one eye to watch my prize trying to climb out of the bowl, while the other smiled at the human. Though he was smiling back. I didn't understand at first what was so funny, but in time my pride faded. I realized what had happened when I saw that the human had made a first catch. His starboard weapon systems reached for exactly what I expected him to, but his port side arm extended out and bent 90 degrees at the elbow. My eyes left his face and followed the bend in the arm down to his hand, which was currently palm down over a plate of ham. His shot hit successfully without target locking. I saw what he was doing. He expended the same maneuver he used against me in the battle over the Flactosian homeworld. The human admiral managed to distract me in the exact same way. He locked target over a Flactosian capital, and in response, I ordered my ships to intercept missiles before they even fired. However, the capital wasn't his target. I should have known too. He wanted to break the blockade, not destroy the planet. The missiles launched, and my loyal ships fired their own weapons to intercept. But in the mess, I had failed to notice a vomit-inducing amount of unguided missiles cruising towards my capital ship. Normally, we would just maneuver away, but it was too late, and my guns were still reloading from firing at the missiles. By the time I had noticed, I barely had the time to make it to an escape pod. My prize ship was gone, and all because the human's risk-taking paid off. He was a lone ship against 10, outgunned, but somehow victorious. The human retracted his arm with 4 thick slices of ham pressed between each of his grubby fingers, then dropped the lump of animal flesh on his platter. I gave a look that spoke, "You won this round, but don't get used to it." This continued, and the human employed many tricks. He reached for the cookie tray, but instead grasping a cookie, his hand reached lower and spun the plate, presenting the side with oatmeal raisins to me, and bringing the chocolate chip cookies outside my reach. The exact same maneuver he employed when I found him trying to hide on the surface of a small asteroid. I was ready for him to flee. My ship was faster this time, and I knew I could catch him. But instead of taking off, he left his docking clamps engaged and fired up his engines. This rotated the asteroid and revealed the cluster of mines planted on the surface. Just as the mines made contact, the explosion gave him an ever-expanding, impenetrable field of sharp rocks and radiation between the two of us, and plenty of time for him to warp away. The two of us, we made a mess of that table. Hands moved fast, tricks employed, maneuvers and outmaneuvers expended. Beads of sweat dripped from each of us until our plates were both equally towering. Okay, fine. A draw. I should have known this would happen. Nothing new, really. I should have capitalized on the one weakness that I'd learned the human has. His mother. "Mrs. Miller, I noticed that you brought some delicious-looking brownies, but I can't find them." I knew where they were. Just the last slice was hidden under Admiral Miller's cherry-flavored jello and the Gorthakian sausage skewers. "Oh, I saw Sean grab some. Sean, why don't you just give them some of yours? I don't think he's had Earth brownies before." The look Admiral Miller gave me was exactly what I was hoping for. Pure, seething hatred. It washed over me and brought me joy. I watched as, for the first time, I managed to claim a victory. Almost like a robot, my rival Admiral, one by one, picked items off his plate and slammed it aside to reveal my prize. Here, it was presented to me on the end of a fork. I gave an approving smile and ate it in front of him. I could practically see him salivating, with his mouth tighter than a Tilhon's anus. Was it too easy? Something felt off, though. That thought of his jaws relaxing and curved upwards when he realized that what happened, the brownie icing, was replaced with refried, defter gonads. How had he managed that so fast? Did he sabotage his own dessert just in the off chance that I managed to snag it off his plate? Perhaps he saw me eyeing it earlier. Or did he sabotage his mother's cooking from the beginning? I couldn't believe he managed another bait-and-switch maneuver. And after I promised myself I'd never lose a ship to that tactic of his again, time went on, and a new battle arose. Each of us attempted to aggressively consume every last morsel on our plates before the other until the human broke the tension. He slammed his silverware down hard, his human strength rocking the solid polymorph table. Excuse me, I need the restroom," my mother replied. "Oh, sure thing, sweetie. Tenson, please show him where it is." Yeah, I bordered on betraying my true emotions when I replied, gladly, through gritted teeth. I marched my way down the halls to the smallest, most cramped restroom of my home had to offer. The human followed silently. I felt a shiver crawl up my spine, a creeping sensation, like spider legs around my neck. To not see the human, and I trusted would be unharmed. "Stop," said the human, once we were out of earshot of our mothers. So I did. I turned to face my foe. "Listen, I don't like you, and you don't like me. But for our mother's sake, let's not kill each other just yet." "For our mother's sake," I scoffed silently. "Our mothers have nothing to do with this." "True, but they'll never understand our history. But I'm calling for a truce." He extended a hand and made heavy eye contact with me. The way humans' eyes locked onto mine was terrifying. It almost made me feel like I was actively shrinking. Though maybe, with hostilities paused, I could spend my time better focused on finding a more exploitable weakness in my human enemy. Coming up with devastating, "your mom" jokes wouldn't necessarily nab me a victory in war. I paused for a moment, playing up the contemplation, before grabbing his hand. His fingers wrapped around mine, so I squeezed hard, trying to give at least a minor discomfort. But to a human, it probably just felt firm. He then walked past me to the small restroom. It was quite comical seeing him maneuver to fit in such a cramped space and adjust to swing the door towards, then away from himself, closing me out. I wandered back to the table, contemplating setting up tripping hazards along the way. It wouldn't be me breaking the truce, but the mop and bucket, if you thought about it. If you thought about it too hard, that is. Knowing humans, though, there probably wouldn't be much for his brutish strength to flick away unnoticed. The human took his time. As I was wondering where he had gone, I heard his mother ask, "Did you wash your hands?" "Mum, I can't figure out Encodian sinks." Once again, I witnessed this human female exert control over this powerful enemy with just a glance. I took another mental note and waited for the human's second return, this time with wet hands. Dinner continued, albeit at a less violent pace thanks to our ceasefire. I could actually taste the food that I was eating this time, and the human female proved to be an adequate cook. My favorite was the authentic Vanity mountain peak pie. Perhaps an exploratory mission is called for. I launched a probe with a single question. "So, Mrs. Miller," I started. I had to think tactfully to maneuver this asteroid field with diplomacy this time around. "Your son is quite the accomplished tactician. I'm sure word has spread of his accomplishments in your homeworld." I thought a pat on the back was in order for keeping the compliment generic enough to hopefully get any number of more specific pings back. Perhaps she would divulge something substantial for me to latch onto. "Oh, well, I'm not sure what you mean," I cursed under my breath. She was more put off than willing to spill any beans. Perhaps she's onto me. The human male eyed me with suspicion and responded to my prodding by launching his own probe into my space. "Mrs. Jamin, your son and I have spent quite a bit of time together. Has he mentioned me by any chance?" "Well, of course. He has an AI running simulation on his computers for—" "Mom!" That was it. The human has gone too far. I excused myself from the table and bolted upstairs. I sprinted as fast as I could, with maneuvering thrusters at full burn. I curved the corner and extended my starboard side to push against the wall, allowing me to turn without slowing down. My feet were losing traction, and my engines began to sputter. I fell to my hands once or twice, but without slowing. I used the extra contact with the ground to help push my way forward. There it was, my room. The door was left open, but I didn't remember leaving it that way. I didn't have time to think about why or notice the cracks in the upper corners of the door frame. My control panel was already logged in. Strange. I had to give the order to destroy the human's fleet while it was unguarded. The door closed behind me, and I turned slowly. The human male squeezed through the door and loomed over me. "It's too late, Admiral Chabin. I already gave your fleet a suicide run order against the Tycran Empire." "When? How?" "You don't remember bringing me here? The bathroom is right next door. Oh, and you should consider a better password than humans suck 1234. I backed away and felt behind me for something, anything that I could use against the towering human. Whatever I found, I knew wouldn't be enough. The human hair brushed the ceiling and the floor creaked under his weight. I fell to my knees, defeated, waiting for a final blow that never came. Instead, the human female called for her son, so he left. I could hear the females conversing from here as I collapsed further into a ball. "Well, I guess we should go. Sorry for taking your ears off." "Well, I figured with all the time our boys have spent on that Admiral game together, we should get in touch. Oh, and don't forget to bring your mountain pig pie recipe tomorrow at the parent-teacher conference." I tried to stop myself from responding. It took everything I had, but it wasn't enough. "Mom, it's not a game, it's a simulation." End of story. I'd quickly like to thank the T5 peeps: Cold War Boomerwaffen, Severin Cerberus, Bushmaster 177, Henry the Red, Caspar Arnholtz, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Elijah Silvercross, Dragzoon WRE, and Severin Cerberus. Thank you very much.